Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com.
And I'm Bob. How's it going?
Bob and I are here today to finally talk about this new AR1 ski boot from Armada. It's not breaking news. They announced this back in, I think, early to mid-January. But we have now spent a pretty good amount of time in them, and I think are ready to kind of share our initial reactions to them. Bob, you're going to kind of run us through the technical details of the boots in a little bit, but essentially the goal here from Armada, this being their first ever ski boot, is to kind of capture the theme of Armada as a brand, more of a park brand, more of a free ski brand. And from more of a technical perspective here, we're kind of blending the performance and really the construction, like the style of boot itself, of a cabrio boot, a three-piece cabrio boot, and a traditional four-buckle overlap boot. And it's quite interesting.
Yeah, and I think you're right that they did capture that Armada spirit.
I agree 100%.
That they really succeeded in that endeavor.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. We got our hands on these boots back in mid-January. Somewhat challenging to find time to ski in them, and ski boots can be tricky too, because at least for me, I've had to kind of mold the liners and stuff like that to make them work well. But I've got the 110 MV here. Bob, you've got the 130 MV. One thing that has been interesting for me is I haven't skied in anything except for a 130 boot, with some exceptions, but minor exceptions in like the last 15 years. So that was interesting, just to kind of get ahead of that.
Right.
And yeah, I'm excited to talk about them.
All right.
So did we miss anything in the introduction?
Just that there's all sorts of flexes. So 90, 100, 110, 120, 130.
Yeah.
All slightly different, and I believe that they're currently as a unisex line and all mid-volume. So it doesn't matter what you are.
And we have both of these flexes available right now. So like you can buy them on Ski Essentials right now. The whole collection, or at least this first year for the whole collection, will be available in the late summer and fall.
Yep.
So, yeah, exciting stuff. Bob, you want to tell us what's going on here? Because there's a lot of stuff going on.
A whole lot of stuff going on in these boots, Jeff, and like you alluded to, really the focus was blending a cabrio boot with a four-buckle boot. So how did they do that from a construction perspective? For all intents and purposes, this is a three-piece shell.
Yeah.
So in my mind, that's a cabrio. We have a lower shell, an upper cuff, and a tongue, a plastic tongue. So to me, that's full-on cabrio.
Yeah, I agree.
But then
there are things on it that we've never seen on a cabrio boot before.
Or any boot before.
Yeah.
So very unique construction here. The big thing here is the use of this slingshot buckle, this third buckle here, the mid buckle, that has a cable attached to it, and then a fixed point here below the upper cuff. So what that's doing is it's making the base of the buckle here act as a fulcrum. So when you buckle it, it's pulling from that fixed point and from the buckle.
Yeah.
So that's kind of taking the space of where the second and third buckle on a four-buckle boot would be, and really anchoring your ankle in the heel pocket, as well as functioning as an instep buckle.
Well, and it's different too obviously it's different than if it were two buckles, but one of the things that I think is interesting is there's like a little pulley right here.
Right.
So it's like designed to like move and flex. Like it's not like two fixed points.
Right.
So kind of interesting. Kind of reminds me of like BOA conversations.
It was funny when we first saw this. It's like, oh, they just put a BOA on a buckle.
Sort of, and like it's far different, but it is interesting to see that.
Such a hot topic. It's hard to avoid.
Yeah.
So that's one component that brings it into four buckle world, and then the other one is the rear spine here. So this is kind of where we normally see a rivet or two in connecting the upper shell and lower cuff. Here we have the One, and it also functions as a forward lean adjustment. So once I take the liner out, we can kind of look at how that happens. But the shell is connected to the cuff in much of a traditional manner like you'd see in a 4-buckle overlap boot.
Yeah.
So both of those things bring it into 4-buckle zone. It is a lower ankle point here. It's kind of like what we see on a Lang Shadow with that lower point. It doesn't line up with the hinge of the ankle, and that's something that puts it more in cabrio world.
Yeah.
So there are some things that are kind of giving and taking as we go. And then just while we're on the shell here, mine have tech fittings in the toes. Yours do not, nor do the 120s.
Correct.
So just in the
But
130.
no walk mode, no
Yep.
rear tech fitting.
Nope.
So this is like truly, or not this. That is truly like a hybrid touring boot.
Yeah.
Like using. They would want you to use an Armada shift, you know, and then like go side country touring.
Right. So yeah, that's what's going on with the shell and the construction here. When we open it up and take the liner out, I get a nice thick 50 mil power strap. That's the only one.
Yeah, I think mine's like 30
or something.
40, but it's still this is a nice power strap. Is yours elastic?
Yeah, there's elastic here.
It's like, and it's like booster strap, like World Cup booster strap style elastic.
Once you get the liner out, I feel like the throat of the boot is more cabrio style. There is this front tongue, but that is reinforced by 2 plastic flaps where this upper buckle affixes. So you are getting kind of that upper buckle plastic power in front of your cabrio tongue here.
Well, and it's pretty interesting because, like, hopefully they can see on camera, but like the lower it comes up high on the sides like a cabrio lower, and then obviously you've got the tongue like a cabrio tongue.
Yep.
But then you've got these 2 big flaps like a overlap boot.
Yeah. So there's a lot of layers here, in the shell. So you do get 1, 2, 3, and then 4, I guess, if you count the throat of the cabrio style.
I mean, I skied in them today. This is how tight I had the top buckle.
Yep.
And I mean, if you count it, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's only 4 overlap for like 2 centimeters.
Yeah.
But it is there, so it's like not simplistic.
No, and that's that's kind of what we'll talk about in terms of our impressions, is that it's a pretty complicated boot. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces. It's not the most simple boot out there. But that is the shell, so it does mix the cabrio and the 4-buckle style.
Did you mention forward lean?
I didn't. Well, I mentioned it. I forgot to go further with how that goes, but you can adjust this between 13, 15, and 17 millimeters.
Yeah.
Degrees, I'm sorry. So you can remove the rivet from the back or the bolt from the back, and then there is a plastic shim that I can't get out without removing that bolt.
Yeah.
But the shim goes in and adjusts.
It's kind of like a spacer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like so they come out of the box, they come at 17, and if you're at 17 degree forward lean, then the spacer just gets removed entirely. And then like 15, it's like halfway slid down.
Yeah.
And then 13, it kind of locks into place all the way down.
Yeah, and again, it's not like the easiest thing. You do have to.
Yeah, I wrestled with it though, and like it's kind of cool that like you don't have to take the upper cuff off.
No, and that's kind of what I was worried about is
me too.
looking at this and thinking, oh, I got to take the whole thing off.
No, you kind of just like unbuckle everything and like pull this back a little bit, and there's room to kind of slide that in there.
Once you take the rear bolt off, it becomes a lot more apparent what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the shell. There is a softer boot board in there, so cushions, landings, and park, which I know you'll talk about.
Yeah.
But it's not like a hard boot board delivering endless power like you'll see in a Lang with a hard, a full hard sole.
Yeah, I mean that like the boot board in my speed machines is like that hard like white material.
Yeah.
I should actually check, see if it's like shattered, but like
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, it's give and take,
Yeah.
you know, because in that hard, rigid material, you do get like better power transfer. But then like when you're landing big jumps, you know, if you take something to flat accidentally, you won't bruise your heel.
Yeah, or rails. You know, it's
Yeah.
just like
Yeah, a
you're
little
landing on
smoother.
metal.
Yeah.
You're going to
yeah.
want a little bit of cushion.
Yeah.
And then this liner's great. You know, it's heat moldable. Both shell and liner are heat moldable.
Yeah.
You went through more of a heat molding process than I did.
Yeah.
It does have a movable tongue, so you can go forward or backwards if you're feeling any pressure. So that's an easy thing to play with and kind of try to dial in. And then heating them at a boot shop really just kind of opens up the boot. And for someone like you that this is a tight fit,
Yeah.
that's going to be really, really helpful. For me, I kind of like to ski it in and see what's what before making any big moves like that. But
Well, and you know what I found, and I bet this is the same experience that you had. Actually, can I see your liner? Never held it. Yeah, that feels basically the same. So, like one thing that I noticed, and I don't know that I fully noticed it or appreciated it until I went through the molding of the liner, is it's a pretty thick liner.
yeah,
It's not dense. It's thick and kind of cushiony.
yeah,
So for me, pre-molding the liner, there was just like a lot of stuff. And it wasn't that it was like really like hard and tight, but it was just tight kind of everywhere.
yeah.
So this molding it for me helped a lot.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, they do have these TPU kind of anchors on the side that line
Yeah.
up with that slingshot buckle.
Yeah.
And just kind of help to keep your ankle and heel as locked in as possible.
Supposedly stick to the inside of your shell better too.
I mean, like I've noticed that with my zip fit liners that
Yeah.
that
Certain
leather really
materials kind of stick in there.
yeah, it sticks
Yeah.
to the plastic and eliminates any movement.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob.
Oh yeah.
I hope everyone feels as well versed on these boots as I now do. So we've both been skiing in them. We've both had, I'd say, a mix of positive and negative experiences in these boots. Bob, starting with you, just kind of take me through your experience and the things that have felt good and the things that have felt not so good.
Yeah. So first off, like I'm not a cabrio skier. I've never.
Yep.
I've skied them to test them and to
Yeah.
see what's what, but
Yeah.
I've never liked them. So this to me is a little bit too complicated for the performance it delivers. I feel like with a traditional 4-buckle overlap boot, it's easy to get into. It aligns well with where my ankles flex.
Sure.
And I like that type of responsiveness and precision in the flex.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this is subjective to you.
100%.
Yeah.
And this is both of our impressions.
Yep.
So if you've been a cabrio skier, it's going to be a lot easier of a transition.
Yeah, which I can
to
speak to.
this.
Speak to.
But I did feel that this AR1 is a lot more similar to a 4-buckle boot than I think you said you had an Ace of Spades, a Nordica Ace of Spades.
Yeah,
and I remember
several.
I remember skiing that boot and just not feeling good at all.
Yeah, most people, that was their
It was
response to it,
frightening.
but I liked it.
Yeah.
And it you have to think about what I was doing. I was at that point in my life, I was spending like literally 95%
Yeah.
of my time in the terrain park.
Yeah.
So
So getting them on is a little bit of a challenge, and getting your layers and your overlaps to sit right is a little bit of a challenge. But once you're on, it fits my foot well, like it's a proper fit. I'm usually a pretty solid in a mid-volume. You can feel that slingshot buckle kind of pulling back against my instep, especially when I'm flexing forward and more notably at slower speeds. So just to get ahead of that, I found the best performance in this boot at higher speeds and being more aggressive. I finally was able to feel what they're talking about with progressive flex. I never quite understood it, like, and what a benefit that was.
yeah, you just keep pushing.
You just keep pushing forward. And like, because I'm more of a traditional skier, that's where my technique has always kind of led me to, is pushing forward in a boot to get the ski to engage and hook up. So with these, you can keep pushing. So even with the boots that I'm more familiar with, the Kesley boot that I've been skiing in, Technica Mach 1 130 lately, that are very high performance boots, you still feel a hinge. You know, you can be going really fast and start jamming on your boot and you feel that hinge point.
Yep.
That does not happen with this. So you just keep going. And I was really impressed with how well this stood up to high speed, kind of aggressive carving on trail.
Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah. And I can only imagine that would also be the case in more big mountain, wide open areas. I mean, we don't really have
I think so.
that to test.
Yeah.
And then kind of on the flip side, where I felt this boot fell a little bit short performance-wise, was in tighter, more technical terrain, you know, shorter turns. Like if you try to really kind of jam and make a more slalom turn or a more skidded turn,
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like they were as responsive. Just a little bit slower than the boots that I'm used to. So those were a little bit tough. You know, I kind of felt like my ankle wasn't engaging as quickly as in a four-buckle boot.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying that it prefers someone who skis with more fluidity and a smoother skiing style,
Yeah.
and not an abrupt skiing style.
Yeah, I think that type of style is better served in a four-buckle boot.
Yeah.
At least for me.
No, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if you think about like a classic kind of Armada skier, they're probably a little bit more flowy and
Yeah.
like with that style, that kind of like modern freeride
Yeah.
style.
But that, you know, that was kind of it. Those were my two big observations. Was really, really interesting and complete in a long, drawn-out carved turn and just pushing through the tongue.
Yeah.
I thought was really, really fun. And then just a little bit less of engagement in shorter turns and slower things and more technical areas.
Yeah. And
So-
like from a fit perspective, is it fair to say that for you they've been mostly easy and mostly comfortable?
Yeah.
Both of us have had a little bit of like instep things, but it's like
Yeah.
less of a boot issue and more of like a going through the fit process. We could have spent a little more time.
Right. Any boot's going to have something that's going to bother you in some way, shape, or form.
Most likely,
It's
yeah.
very rare
Yeah.
that you put on a brand new boot and you're like, all right, I'm good. See
Yeah.
ya never.
Yeah, very
You know,
rare.
there's usually things that have to be done. I did feel it more on the top of my foot and more in the instep, whether it was the plastic on the shell where that cabrio style makes that U,
Yeah.
or something in the liner. I think we both kind of felt like the plastic overhangs
Yeah, just right on the tongue.
foam a little bit in the tongue.
Yeah.
But it's not debilitating. You know, I've
No.
been in boots before where you take a run and I'm like, that's it, I'm done. This thing's coming off.
Well, and I've talked to so many people that have skied in this boot that it worked just right out of the box for them, and they
Yeah.
were like, "This is amazingly comfortable." And like for me, I think if I put my foot in a 25 right out of the box, it would be perfectly comfortable. It's just like kind of tight
Yeah.
in the 24. So that was, and then I don't know if you mentioned it or not. You've been skiing at 15-degree forward lean,
Yes,
so right in the middle.
right in the middle.
Okay. Anything else, or is it my turn now?
That's about it. Just like I'm actually happy that I was able to finally kind of feel that progressive flex that
Yeah,
everyone's
it's cool.
been talking about.
It's cool.
Yep.
And like I mean, as somebody yay, my turn. I've skied in cabrio boots a ton. Skied in Ace of Spades or like all of that series of the Nordica cabrio boot. I've skied in plenty of Dalbellos. I've spent a decent amount of time in full tilt and K2 flex. So pretty well versed, and also coming from a terrain park background, I can really understand the benefit of boots like that and why people like it. I suppose, like, to stick with the forward lean conversation, out of the box, they felt a little weird for me at 17.
If you're not, if you don't know that you're a 17-degree forward lean skier,
Yeah.
it's pretty jarring.
Yeah, so 110 flex with that 17-degree forward lean. It was tricky for me. You know, I felt, and the other thing that plays into this that Bob has pointed out for me, Bob was a longtime boot fitter. I'd had some boot fitting stints too, but not as not as significant as yours, I would say. But you pointed out to me once that like I have significant ankle flexion. So I think those three things together, like 17-degree forward lean, 110 flex, being used to 130 flex, and then a lot of natural ankle flexion. At 17-degree forward lean, I felt like I was kind of like falling forward a little bit, and it just felt a little weird.
Yeah.
Like I was like constantly a little bit tired because it was like being in a squat the whole time, and I couldn't just like relax forward like I can in a stiffer boot. So I only skied them at 17 degrees for like a very little bit, and I'll play what footage we have of that skiing it at 17 degree. I switched mine all the way to 13 because for me, like I'm excited about this boot mostly from a park perspective and like what it can do to somebody who skis in the park and to varying different degrees. Like either you're skiing in the park all the time or you do it a little bit. I think that's like the goal of this boot. So for me, 13-degree forward lean just made more sense and is certainly working better for me. The real limitation for me in testing this boot has been the 110 flex because you were talking about skiing it hard and faster and carving turns on it. It's kind of been the opposite experience for me, which is not the boot's fault. It's just the fact that I've been skiing in the 110. I'm very excited to try it in a 130 flex in the future. My understanding is that they just didn't have 24s in a 130 flex. So for me, carving turns on groomers, I have to do it more with like a little bit of care, and I can't just like ski with limitless power and just keep pushing and pushing and pushing because it just feels like my knee is going to hit my top sheet of my ski.
It probably would. I wouldn't be surprised.
At some point it would, yeah. So that's been interesting for me. Kind of interesting, like piggybacking off of what Bob was saying about like quickness and like the boot's ability to make like abrupt movements, or for you this was happening at slow speed. I think I kind of felt it a little bit more in those carving formats, is like maybe just like not as much precision from the upper cuff. But I don't really know what to think because I kind of think that's more just the 110 flex. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Jury's still out on that one.
I mean,
I'm not sure.
Again, you have a lot of things to push through. Like I just feel like each of those layers is reducing some type of precision and input.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
that's just kind of that's a design thing that it's just not going to be as reactive.
Yeah, but like in the park and kind of any time that I'm skiing more upright with more of that kind of flowy, modern free ski style, whatever you want to call it, the park skier who's like skiing around groomers and having a good time, the boot really kind of shines in that application.
Yeah.
So in the park, it feels great. I mean, for me, especially at 13-degree forward lean, it feels great. I feel very like stacked. I don't know that we use that term very often, but we use it internally coaching. So, your whole body is stacked.
You hear it more in the racing world.
Yes.
Like your
and
skeletal
it probably
stacking.
means very different things, or like the posture is very different.
Yeah.
But for me, I feel very aligned in this boot. And then it like the suppleness of having a progressive flex on landings is awesome. I love the way this boot feels on rails. Like, to be honest, 130 flex 4-buckle overlap boots are often not that fun on rails. And like I do it anyways because I love sliding rails. But if you're like a little bit off with your weighting in a 130 flex 4-buckle overlap boot, you feel it.
Yeah.
It lets you know. For me, I feel it mostly like in my knees probably, where these are a lot more accommodating and a lot more forgiving. I went like kind of big on a 540 this morning, and I would have felt it. It might not have hurt in my speed machines that I ski in mostly, but it didn't hurt at all in these. And I even like probably landed like a little bit sideways, and it just let you down perfectly.
Right.
So it's pretty cool. Like I'm excited to have this boot I think we're actually going to try and get some other people to test your boots, like Matt, who's through a couple walls, not younger Matt, but my age Matt. He has much more of my background. He was a park skier for a long time, and now he's a free ride coach at Mad River Glen.
Yeah.
So love to get his feedback. I'm not giving mine up because like owning a 110 Flex park boot for me is kind of sweet.
Right.
And like I need to spend a little bit more time with the liner to get it as comfortable as I would like it to be. This morning I probably skied in it 5 runs, and then I was kind of like, yeah, it's like hurting my forefoot a little bit. I think I'm gonna go switch boots, and I did. But if it wasn't for that one spot where it's like, again, that tongue, which I know I can fix it, I could have skied in them all day. And that's like something that I know Armada is touting as a benefit, and I've talked to other people. I've had anecdotal experiences from other people who even just right out of the box, they were able to ski this thing perfectly comfortable all day long. And that's like, Armada wants it to be comfortable, and I think they've achieved that, again, for me, aside from just that one little thing. So, when I'm excited to own this boot, like I said, when I choose to ski this boot, I won't be carving turns on groomers. Or like, sure, I will, but that won't be the focus. That'll be a point A to point B thing.
On the way to the park.
On the way to the park, or on the way to like a natural hit, like we were hitting that little groomer jump today. And
that was
like
fun.
That stuff's super fun on this boot. So for me, it's like a mentality thing and a skiing style thing. And I think that's important for people to know about this boot. Now, what I will definitely add, and I hope that people understand this, and it wouldn't be surprising at this point, is I might not feel exactly that same way in the 130. I might find that in that 130, I do still think there's probably a little bit of reduced like upper cuff precision, I think, but that's like a hypothesis. But I might get in that boot and that might just be completely negligible, and I might find that I can rip carving turns on that thing. And it's not like I couldn't make a pretty good turn on these. I just had to be a little bit careful.
Right.
So, anything else you're curious about?
No, I just, I wanted to add that because this is a brand new boot from the bottom to the top, that I would be more surprised, if everything went perfectly.
Yeah.
Like that would be the bigger surprise, is if it was, 100% awesome right away.
Yeah.
So I think that there are going to be some things that I don't know what their plan is moving forward, but there'll probably be incremental changes over the years, I'm sure. But yeah, I think for a first effort, this is really, really good, and it certainly captures. What are you doing?
Oh, just taking stuff apart.
I think that it captures, like we said at the beginning, like Armada's style and their spirit, and fits in well with kind of their athletes.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I know their athletes are psyched about it. Did you know you can take this out?
Yeah, it's an adjustable upper cuff. I guess I didn't go over that in the
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, so you can, like, and this is something that I actually plan on playing around with. So, like, you've got spoiler
and
this.
plastic, yeah.
Right now I have no spoiler, but this rear little plastic thing. I'm kind of curious to try it without this and with spoiler. And there's like kind of a lot going on in that regard. Like you can play around with this thing and make it work for you.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, is that it? Did we do it?
I think we did it.
All right. So that's it. That's the new Armada AR One. It's super cool. My rear plastic thing is back in, so don't worry.
We're good to go.
It's all under control over here on the side of the wall, Bob.
Good.
So yeah, let us know if you have any questions. Did we mention that they're available now?
You did say that at the beginning, yeah.
These are available now. And then like the 90, the 100, and the 120 Flex will be available in the late summer, fall. So let us know if you have any AR1 questions, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.